think we're gonna finally end it. Saiyan MGTOW here with over 9,000 opinions. Welcome to the video.
Of that, but we need so much more than that. Because ours is a firmly entrenched system in which the roots of white supremacy run deep, and it is critical that we all grab a fucking shovel. To do anything less would be absolutely unforgivable. And actually, to that point, there's one person I saw this week whose words have been echoing around my head, and you've been listening to me talk for a while. So now I'm going to let her have the last word tonight.
So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have. That if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the fuck do I give a shit about burning the fucking football Hall of Fame, about burning a fucking Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give a fuck. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth.
I give a fuck.
You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own by our bootstraps in Tulsa and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so fuck your Target. Fuck your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
That's our show. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Okay, so when I first watched this, I'll admit I didn't know what to say. I mean, it's pretty convincing on the level of feeling. I wasn't more than slightly knowledgeable about Tulsa or Rosewood. I felt like, damn, maybe she has a point. Then I listened to it again, and I came up with what I wanted to say in response. Keep in mind, this first part is just my initial reaction. Did she really just say black people don't own anything? That's the type of damaging lie that some black people have been telling themselves over and over for years, and so they believe it. Even though we know, we have videos of all of the minority-owned business owners just crying and shaking their heads as they clean up the fucking mess that ignorant people like this chick leave behind after they have a non-productive temper tantrum. Equality, huh? I think you've got it. But if you don't think so, I think the best course of action would be to convince people of African descent to stop committing 50% of the murder. My solution is to have a crime drought. And major police reform. And yes, acknowledging racism and slavery as lingering causes to problems as well. Like, public figures haven't been saying that for decades. But okay, we can say it again. So now I've watched it a couple times, did some research, and I have more things to say. So I called her ignorant, and I stand by that. Because black people do own things. But you know what? I'm ignorant too. Because I didn't know about Tulsa and Rosewood. But now I do, and I want to talk about them before I really dive deep into her arguments. So, in the early 1920s, I'll admit racism was a huge problem, and it wasn't a 1 in a million to have a black person actually being hunted down for being black. So, in Tulsa, word got out that a black dude was arrested because he was accused of assaulting a 17-year-old white girl. Then word got out he was going to get lynched. So apparently 75 black dudes went to the jail to stop the lynch mob from getting to the accused. And they brought guns. And one thing led to another. You never know the truth of these things. And then the mob and the 75 protectors started opening fire on each other. And then the lynch mob on the ground and in the air decimated 35 blocks of a very wealthy black neighborhood. That's about the short of it. Then in Rosewood, kinda the same thing happened. A black dude got accused of assaulting a white lady, then a lynch mob ravaged the streets with fire and murder. I'm sure I've heard of at least the Black Wall Street one. But I never really knew these stories and had them imprinted onto my brain like I do now. Thanks to John Oliver and this lady at the end of the video. So I want to say thank you and express the need for every American to know these stories so that we know more about our history as we continue to strive to not repeat the evils of our past. However, regardless of our past, regardless of feelings, an argument is an argument. And I'm about to dig deep into this lady's argument as a whole. Number 1, she says black people don't own anything. No buildings, no business, no cars, no homes. This is utterly ridiculous, and of course it's not true. Number 2, she says we have a social contract, that if you steal or if I steal, then the authority comes in and fixes the situation. Then she says the social contract is broken because the authority that comes in is killing us. I assume she means black people. But her whole social contract thing is messed up. The social contract I thought we all are supposed to have is that it's wrong to steal. That's the social contract. That we don't take what's not ours. She's like, yeah, if I steal or if you steal, and I'm just sitting here like, brah, don't steal. Problem solved. But going along with her point, okay, yeah, if cops are just coming over and killing people because they have dark skin, then I understand her feeling like she doesn't have to follow the rules. Like if you're Jewish in Warsaw in 1930-something, you wouldn't feel very respectful towards your nation's laws. But just because the police might be evil, that doesn't mean you have the moral authority to steal from anyone you want to. This lady literally just said she only doesn't steal because the cops exist and that's the rules. Where is her her personal morality? Her thinking is, cops kill dark-skinned people for no reason, so why should I care about burning Target or Sports Hall of Fames? This is the thinking of someone who thinks that people involved with Target and the Sports Hall of Fames don't care about cops killing dark-skinned people for no reason. She is doing what she says she despises. She is taking the actions of a few cops and saying, see, it's everyone at Target who doesn't give a fuck. And that's just not true. Or maybe not, like I still don't get why she connects Target to police racism. Moving on. Or just racism. Number 3, if you want to stop playing the American game, then leave. If you want to make things better here, burning down Target is not where you should start or ever venture. Number 4, by burn this bitch to the ground, I'm assuming she means her entire city. And she says that still wouldn't be enough. Did no one teach this lady that 2 wrongs don't make a right? I mean, has she never had a talking to about an eye for an eye and how it's bad and how it makes everyone blind? But then she does a 180 and says black people are not looking for revenge. Like what? Like seriously? How is burning down a Target because cops are killing dark-skinned people about equality and not revenge? I mean, I don't even get how it's revenge. It makes no sense. The utter lack of self-reflection in this person's ethic is shocking, although she does get the correct point across in feeling, and I mean that. But she makes a terrible, horrible, dangerous, and nonsensical point in the actual words she said. Now, before I end this annoyingly long series, I want to say that in an earlier video I said that you don't have to interact with cops if you don't commit crimes, except like to pull over to the side of the road when they drive by. This statement was wrong, but not committing crimes certainly will decrease the police interactions and your likelihood to get arrested / resist arrest. Also, I want to talk about Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. First, I'm going to get water. Some people have been saying the following. After the Boston terrorist bombs went off, the slogan was Boston Strong. And people weren't complaining by saying, all cities are strong. So imagine if St. Louis had a bad terrorist attack, and then Reno. Should the movements in those cities be Reno Strong and St. Louis Strong? What if you live in LA, and you don't know which movement to support? You want to walk the LA streets with a sign to show your fight against terrorism, but what do you write on your sign? LA Strong, Reno Strong, Boston Strong, or St. Louis Strong? How about America Strong? Or USA Strong? Now, I'm not faulting Black Lives Matter or Boston Strong at first. I think those names were appropriate at the time to start with. I really do. But I do think those names leave something to be desired. They lack a certain unity. After several years, I think those movements should have said, you know what, we're going to change our name to All Lives Matter and USA Strong, because we want our movements to grow in power and purpose and include all people affected by racism or terrorism. And obviously no one would forget that Boston and Black Lives were the sparks that originated the nationwide movement against police brutality and racism and terrorism. Instead, they didn't do that, did they? Now hold on a minute. Aren't you being a hypocrite, Saiyan MGTOW? I mean, men going their own way? Doesn't that lack certain unity? Yes, it does. It's kind of the same thing as Black Lives Matter, actually. Individual men feel like the system is unfair against men. And so, as a man, I am saying that I am walking away from the system. But there is a huge difference. Our culture. If you were saying BLM before the 2000s, then I don't have any complaints. But there comes to a point where the message behind your movement is accepted and celebrated and obvious. To 95% of the people in the country, in your country, agree. And the group you are in is equal under the law. Or in the case of Boston, there's not a law that says terrorism in Boston is legal. I use MGTOW now because I'm a male and that's my perspective, and I feel like my perspective on how marriage is horrible, how female nature and male nature matters, how kids are brainwashed to laugh at male problems, how people are use shaming language at men who can't get a wife, and at men who can but just don't want to. Until I feel like my culture is on board with my movement, I don't feel like changing the name to Humans Go Their Own Way. But that's the title we should strive to achieve. Where we all reject marriage and gender roles. Side note, I have no problem with exclusive, committed, lifetime partnerships, but that's not what a marriage is. But that's not just what a marriage is. But maybe that's why some BLM people continue using BLM. They don't feel like people around them think their life matters. Well, I can tell you one thing. The more targets and sports Hall of Fames you burn to the ground, the less I think your life matters. Just like the more toxins you spew with the title MGTOW in your name, the less our culture will be on board with our desire to go our own way. Saiyan MGTOW here with over 9,000 thank yous for watching the video. And the whole series.